So these are the assembly instructions for my back to school backpack. I'm going to start with one of the side pieces. Now there are 2 score lines on each side of the piece, and then there's a score line at the top. And you just want to fold down, and it ends abruptly, so you just want to fold down on that center score line. There's also a rectangular score line at the bottom, and that's where we're going to glue on our side pocket. We have 3 pockets in the file. Fold down on all the score lines, and for the side score lines you want to fold down on the first one, the first inner one, and then you want to fold a valley fold, so sort of like an accordion fold. So you fold down and fold this end back on itself like so. I'm putting glue on the tabs on each side and the tab at the bottom, and then I'm just placing this piece so that it fits within the score line. Next, I'm putting glue on the top tab that's at the top of the flap for my pocket. I'm just laying my flap down so it's just at the top like so, and then when I push down on it, you want to make sure that the sides are nice and flush. Then I have my little closure piece. So I have the stitching on the top, and I'm just going to flip my piece around and put glue just approximately where those stitch marks are, so a little square. And then I want this as centered as possible. Those square stitch lines are just above the stitch lines on my flap. I have a little closure. I have 3 pieces of cardstock that I've glued on top of one another. This is just scrap cardstock that's approximately the same width as my closure. And I'm going to take this little strip and put glue on both ends. And then I'm going to put this strip in position, and I'm centering that rectangle over the closure like so. And this just adds a little bit of a gap and protects my piece from getting glue on it. And I'm going to remove it. Now I have the second side that's exactly the same, and I'm just going to glue the pocket onto it. Next, I'm going to glue down the pocket for the front panel as well. So this is my front panel. So I have 2 identical panels. One you have to decide is going to be your back, and the other one is going to be the front. And I'm just folding down on my pocket the way I did for the smaller ones for the sides. So I'm just putting glue on the tabs at the back. So just looking on my mat, this side is at 1 inch in, and this side is 1 inch in as well, and this is about approximately ½ inch off the bottom. And then I have my flap for the top. Just like for the side flap, I'm just putting glue along the top. Position this piece. I'm just closing the flap to make sure that it's flush on both sides. A little square that tells me where the center of my panel is. And I'm just going to glue down my little closure. So I'm using my scrap pieces of paper. I'm just putting glue on the back. I'm just positioning it over, and then I'm going to take my scrap away. And that's the front of my bag. So this is the bottom of my box, and I've folded up the sides. These 2 score lines are for the back of my backpack. And I have this piece of craft board which I'm gluing into the bottom of my bag to make it a little sturdier. Now I'm going to flip my piece over. This is my back piece, this is my front piece. I'm just putting glue on the front flap. And I'm just lining up my front piece. Cut edge of it is right along the score line. Both sides are flush with the end of the tab. And then I have my 2 side pieces. I'm going to put glue on the side tabs and glue on my side pieces. Now these 2 markings are in the bottom for bottoms of my straps. The bottom of my straps have an angled score line on one end, so this is the tapered end. There's a score line at the straight end as well. Okay, so this is how my backpack is going to sit. I want my straps to angle towards the back of the center like so. So that's why these are at an angle, because I'm going to put glue on the bottom tab, and this one, as I glue it down, I want the folded angled edge right up against the edge of the bottom The other one is folded down in the opposite direction, almost as if they were going to cross. So I'm just putting glue on the tab at the bottom, so the score line is right against the fold line of the bottom of my box, like so. So now that the bottom of my straps are in place, I can glue on the back of my backpack. And then with the tab on this side, I'm just putting glue all over this tab. I'm bringing up the back of my box to the tab, like so, that my cut line is just against the score line. I'm going in with a bone folder, and I'm just spreading that glue, making sure that my side is properly adhered. I'm putting glue on the tab that's on the other side, and I'm grabbing the front of my backpack and just making sure that the cut line of the front is right against the score line of the side piece. I'm putting glue on both these tabs. I'm raising my side into position and gluing those sides in place. So I've just glued down the strip for my larger front closure by putting glue in that score line and just gluing down that piece. I've duplicated the buckle pieces because I want to put them back to back so that they're pretty from both sides. It also makes them sturdier. So I'm just gluing them one on top of another, making sure that the edges are nicely stacked up. So I've got my backpack here. I'm going to flip it over so that I'm looking at the back. And so I've just put glue between the score line and the edge of the piece all the way along that flap at the top. And then I'm flipping my piece around and I'm gluing it to the back of my backpack, making sure that the edges are flush. I'll flip it around here, you can see what I'm doing, and that that flap is right up against the score line, like so. So I have this flap, and on this flap I have 4 little slots. So I have this one piece that's tapered at both ends. I'm holding with my thumbs on either end, and I'm just bringing this piece together. And then I'm inserting those ends in those 2 middle slots. And I'm going to flip my piece around. I'm putting it to the side here so you can see. A little bit of glue on the underside. And then I'm just going to position those pieces as straight as possible. And then I have my buckle pieces. They're going to be fitted in the slots that are on the outside. Tabs on the end have angled score lines. I want the angles of the score lines, so when they're folded down, my straps go outwards. So the one that's on the left-hand side, you want it to go downwards towards the left. So I'm just going to insert it in that little slot. You can double check you have it right. When you bring this one up, they should be over one another like so. For the other side, again, put my bag on its side, putting glue underneath both those tabs and gluing them down. Then I have these little circles that I'm going to glue on to reinforce the holes in my strap. I have the bottom of my straps with those score lines, and my little prong is towards the right on both sides, and I have that flap over like so. I'm just going to put glue all over from the score line to the end, and then I'm just going to fold it over and glue that piece to itself. I'm going to do that on both of them. So I'm weaving it through, catching it on that prong, and there's my buckle. I'm going to do that on both sides as well. So this is a strip that's just to camouflage all those tabs that I glued down at the top. So that's the interior of my box. I'm just putting it along that score line, and that's just to hide the tabs that I have there. And here is my zipper, a large oval, smaller oval. I'm trying to glue it so that it's more or less centered. I have my zipper with the thicker end on the right hand side. I'm just going to put glue on the back, and I'm placing it a little bit more to the right here because I want to have enough room for my zipper pull. Again, I've got 2 pieces of craft board and I'm just gluing them together. I have this tiny little rectangle I've wrapped it around the zipper pull and I'm gluing it to itself. I've just put a little double-sided tape on the back of that piece, and I'm going to glue it at the very end of the piece of my zipper, like so. And then there's that little extra piece that I've just glued down the very end here. So I've glued down my buckle in the same manner as I did for the buckles for the straps. And then I folded over at the score line and glued it in the center panel. Then you want to bring this tab in through and pull your tab downwards. It's going to glue my zipper, make it centered as possible on that upper flap.